Hi everybody, how you doing? If you haven't watched this channel before, my name is Craig. I'm a retired American living off of my Social Security here in the country of Thailand. Most of the content on this channel is really about my Thai life here on our Thai farm in the village of Kampang Phet in Thailand. But I wanted to make this video today to talk about the U.S. Social Security system and the benefits that your foreign non-U.S. citizen spouse can receive. Many of these benefits will be the same as they are for a normal U.S. citizen spouse, but I just want to focus on the foreign non-U.S. citizen spouse, especially those that are currently living overseas. Now, many Americans have decided to retire abroad, move to a host of great countries where it's a lot cheaper, a lot less stressful, and their money, their Social Security money, goes a lot farther. And Thailand is also one of those countries. The U.S. Embassy estimates there's probably 100,000 Americans in Thailand on any given time. More than half, or at least half of those, are going to be retired U.S. citizens living in the country. And for many of you, if you're a retired American, you're living abroad, or if you're thinking of going and living abroad, you are at an age where you've had a lot of experiences in your life. You may actually be divorced, you may have grown children, you may be on your second half of your life or your second journey into adventure, right? That's the whole point of living abroad. Not just that it's cheaper and more amazing, but you know, it's kind of like this retired adventure. You can't wait to get there. Or if you're here and you're there, you're already saying, man, best decision I ever made. But what happens for many of them, as you retire and you move abroad and you start living with the culture and enjoying everything around it, and you meet a lot of friends, you, I suppose, by second nature, wind up meeting someone else in your life that's significant. And that significant someone may wind up being your wife. So if you get married abroad, maybe you never went back to America, but if you get married abroad, now you have another wife to look out for. If you are one of those individuals who retired abroad and then you fell in love again and you found someone and you married them, you thought this is the greatest thing ever, I'm going to go out on a limb here and I'm going to say that that person you married is probably significantly younger than you. You came to your foreign country or Thailand at the retirement age. So you're either 62, which is early retirement for America, or you're 67, which is full retirement age in America, or somewhere in between maybe. But most Americans will either retire at 62, because it's the earliest you can take your benefit. That's what I did. Or you retire at full retirement age, 67, so you can get a little bit more money. Or maybe you even stayed for what it was, what is it called? Delayed credits. So that's, you can go 3 more years, so you can retire at 70 and you get 8% each year. So basically you're going to get 24% more if you wait until you're 70 years old. But you know, who wants to do that, right? That means that would mean that you're working, or actually maybe you don't have to work. You know, but who wants to do that, right? So if you moved abroad, you're already, let's say that you are 67. Let's say you waited till full retirement and you're 67 years old receiving your benefit. And then you meet someone and you fall in love, and that person is 37 years old. Not a child, but she's still younger than you by 30 years, and she's 37. She's a grown-ass woman. Okay, so now you're all happy and everything's growing great. And as you start to plan out the rest of your life, you think, you know, gosh, I really want to take care of my wife, but my Social Security income is the only income I have. I don't have $500,000 in the bank. I don't have $1 million life insurance policy. I don't have all this financial stability that would normally provide for my spouse through eternity or whatever. And my spouse doesn't come from a rich family. So what happens is, a lot of Americans are in the, I suppose, misunderstanding that when you die, that your spouse gets your Social Security. It's not that easy, especially if your spouse is 30 years younger than you. That means she's going to be waiting for your Social Security, especially if that spouse is a foreign non-U.S. citizen spouse with no alien green card registration, or no, she's not a naturalized U.S. citizen. So in this case, and this is what's typical that we see in many of the foreign countries where a retiree has married someone, many Americans don't actually want to go back to America. They left America to retire overseas, and they're more than happy living the rest of their life abroad. They might have to go back once or twice, whatever, but not to go back and live there with their new spouse. And so with that reasoning, there's no need to make the new spouse a U.S. citizen or to get an alien registration green card. You know, if you're lucky, maybe you get the tourist visa for them and you do a little visit to Disneyland or something. And but so this doesn't happen. So what happens is that spouse is then in that group of foreign non-U.S. citizen spouses. Now the benefits for spouses with Social Security are the same they are for a normal U.S. citizen spouse, but there are additional requirements for the foreign non-U.S. citizen spouse living abroad if they want to receive benefits. If you're not familiar with spousal benefits, it's a pretty simple premise. As a retiree, you're receiving your benefit. Let's say you're getting $3,000 a month from Social Security. Your spouse is entitled to an amount equal to half of what that is when they reach retirement age. It's not half of your money, it's a whole different pot of money. So that means when your spouse reaches the age of 67 or full retirement age, they'll be able to get $1,500, and now you'll have $3,000. That's $4,500 between you. That's a sight better, yeah? And the example again is you're retired at 67, you moved abroad, and then you met the love of your life and you married that person. Let's say you married them and they're 37, so now they're 30 years younger than you. Well, that presents a significant challenge for a spousal support benefit when they reach retirement age, because 30 years from now, that spouse will be at full age retirement, eligible for that $1,500, but you'll be like 97, or frankly, you'll probably be dead. So then it switches over to a widow benefit, which again, for a foreign non-U.S. citizen spouse, it is possible to receive that benefit, but you need to be able to meet the same requirements as it is for the normal spousal benefit as a foreign non-U.S. citizen spouse. You don't automatically just get their money. It doesn't work that way. And again, this is a lot of misbelief, I think, by retirees. Like, well, I got my Social Security, and you know, and then my wife, my foreign wife's gonna get that when I die. And no, it doesn't happen automatically like that. Your foreign wife has a few hoops to go through, and especially to maintain the status in order to keep the money coming in. So, but generally, again, spousal support is half of what your benefit is. If you do wait until you're 70 and you get that extra 24%, actually spousal support doesn't apply to that part. So the max is half of what full retirement is. And actually, if you retire at 62 early, so let's say you're getting $2,000 a month, but you should have gotten $3 if you waited. If you're getting $2 and your new spouse actually waits beyond 62 to what would it be your full retirement age, which is 67, which is the same going to be for her, she will get half of what the $3,000 would be. So she would get $1,500 and you would have $2, right? Because you retired early. And it works the same the other way. So if you're 67 taking full retirement, your spouse decides to take the spousal benefit at 62, they're going to look at the $1,500 here, and then they're going to further reduce it under the early retirement rule. So that $1,500 is now going to be probably closer to $1,000, because it's about a 30% reduction. So here the challenge presents itself when your spouse is much younger, 30 years younger. How does that person benefit if you die early? Well, I mean, there's a lot of different little caveats in there with respect to, you know, if you were a military service member, you're a veteran, and you died from a service-connected injury, you know, there are those people who died 75 years old, but ultimately it's determined that what caused their death was service-connected injury. That actually waives part of the requirements that you need to collect the benefits, so it becomes a little bit easier. But the reality is it's not, to me, it's not difficult for a foreign non-U.S. citizen spouse to get the benefit, but it is challenging with respect to logistics and personal decisions. And so now let me share with you what that is. So one of the questions I've been asked is, hey Craig, is there any way that my spouse can start receiving spousal benefits somehow before retirement, like way before retirement? So the answer to that is yes. So what are the requirements for receiving spousal benefit for a foreign non-US citizen? The biggest challenge for the non-US citizen spouse to receive spousal benefit is meeting the 5-year presence in America requirement. Now you're thinking, oh my God, that's it, I'm shot. There's no way I'm going back and live in America for 5 years. That would kill me. And hey man, I'm in agreement with you there. I struggled the last 5 years in America that I stayed there. But now you have a dilemma here. What are you going to do to meet the 5-year requirement for your spouse to live in America? Well, the fact is, she doesn't have to. Nope, she doesn't have to live in America. You don't have to go to Disneyland. You don't have to do any of that. Why? Well, because there are probably a dozen different places that are technically American soil, and you can actually choose to live there. Here in Asia, there are a number of places. The island of Guam here in the Pacific, the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, including Saipan, the islands of Tini and Rota, as well as American Samoa, and in the Caribbean, of course, U.S. Puerto Rico, U.S. Virgin Islands. All of these tropical island paradises are U.S. soil and do count towards the 5-year requirement. So for many Americans, you're retired, like here in Thailand, many Americans are down there in Phuket, the island of Phuket, or Koh Chang, or one of 50 different islands down there, or they live on the coast, right on the beach, because they want that kind of environment. They want a relaxed, chilled environment. Well, hey, these islands are perfect opportunity to go live on an island for 5 years. And the best thing is, it doesn't have to be continuous. It can be on again, off again. So you go, you live over there for a year, maybe you come back to Thailand or come back to your host country for a year, and you go back there for a couple of years. And if you have that time, I mean, if you're 80 years old, maybe you don't have the time, I don't know, but you have to ask yourself, what are you prepared to do, right, for your Thai wife or your spouse? Of course, I say Thai wife because I'm in Thailand, but what are you prepared to do to help your spouse receive a benefit for the rest of her life? And being able to relocate to an island nearby here, as a matter of fact, Guam, I think it's like the flight is less than 6 hours. So you could, basically it's like flying from Florida to California, or even less. And that's something that's one way to be able to get around that. Some of the other 5-year requirements are waived, as I said, with with the death of a military spouse connected service-related injury, and there might be one or two other technical sides where those 5 years are waived. But the reality is that you don't want to go to America, or maybe you do go to America, maybe you do take your wife on a tourist visa and you go live in America because you actually still have your house there that happens to be a rental and it's serving you as some rental income or whatever, a host of different scenarios here. And so you go live there for a year, and then you come back and maybe you do go live on Guam for a year, or Saipan for a year, and you just have a great life. You're living on the beach. I can tell you right now, having been to almost every island around here, including I lived on Guam and I lived on Saipan, cost of living might be a little bit more expensive if you're living in a pure Western style. If you're always shopping at price Costco and you want all the best stuff from America, well, then you're going to pay a premium price for that. But there are still a ton of local foods and local farms and everything else that you have with a normal island beach life that you can find and live cheaply, especially even apartments. Do you need that big nice condo overlooking the beach and everything? Well, then you're going to probably pay similar prices. You're going to pay $2,000 a month, maybe even more, for a sweet place. But if you want to have a nice little 2-bedroom apartment that's, you know, on the second, third floor, walking distance in the beach, you know, maybe it is only $450, you know, or maybe even find a house that's up on a hill with a little bit of farmland, and maybe that house is only $450, $550. So you go over there and you start scoping everything out, and then you find out, you know what, I can rent here, I'll live here. Now, the 5-year requirement, like I say, it doesn't have to be continuous. It can add up to 5 years. But when you're adding it up, you can't count like, oh, you know, we go to America every month and I spend a month over there. And it doesn't work that way. It's not all the visits, right? You have to actually have the residence established, and, you know, and your spouse will be normally receiving mail there and those kind of things. So you're showing a presence in America. So if you decide while you're young, maybe you're retired, maybe you are only 62 and you're retired, maybe you retired early at 55. So you have a 5-year window opportunity in here that's relatively close, that you can get your spouse into a nearby U.S. territory where they can get those 5 years credit. Now, speaking of credit, it actually is probably a credit to you, because you may very well want to be able to, I suppose, invest in your future. And if you think about it, if you were to move your spouse over to one of the island territories and you're able to complete those 5 years, then it's locked in. It's a done deal. You can guarantee that money for her for the rest of her life. If she has children, she can start receiving the money right away. But if she doesn't have any children, or her children are already grown, then at least you've kind of banked for her that spousal benefit. And the other aspect to that is, if your spouse is eligible for early spousal benefit, i.e. they do have children that they care for. Speaking of children, the child or children have to be under the age of 16. If they're disabled, they can be under the age of 22, as long as the disability occurred before the age of 16. And by the way, if you wanted those children to actually get benefit as well, get a family benefit amount as well, those children would need to be your children, so you would need to adopt them, and you need to adopt them on U.S. soil. And so I can tell you from experience that it's a heck of a lot easier to adopt a child, in my opinion, on an island like in the Marianas or Guam, just because there's less bureaucracy. You know, I mean, living there, I saw dozens of people be able to adopt their child. They simply fill out the paperwork, go before the judge, I love them, and the kids, I love them, and all that, and then boom, boom, boom. Next thing you know, you apply for a new birth certificate with your name on it. So if you adopt the children, you can't adopt them in your host country and then go. You have to be adopted on U.S. soil, so that it's, you know, it's an official child within the Social Security system. And so, but even without that, you know, because your spouse has children, this enables them to waive the requirement that they wait until 62, the age requirement. So now you have, let's say you've secured the 5 years. The second challenge is to maintain presence in America in order to continually receiving that as a foreign non-U.S. citizen spouse. And what that means is that because you're a foreign non-U.S. citizen, you know, they don't know about continually just sending you money without, you know, knowing that you're actually still out there. Because just like I think there's, for us, you know, Social Security sends U.S. citizens abroad, it's not proof of life or something like that, but every couple of years they send you a document that you have to fill out, let them know that you're still alive and well. So, but for the foreign non-U.S. citizen spouse, they actually have to have a presence in America every 6 months, or otherwise the benefit will be suspended. Now you're thinking, oh my God, 6 months, what the hell? You know, well, you know, I'm an American living in a foreign country, and I know that just about anybody living in a foreign country will probably tell you that it's crazy sometimes, but it's really just a process for me. It's just a procedure. Every 90 days I go to the immigration office and go in there, fill out one piece of paper and say hi and check in, give him my passport. He looks at it, gives me a piece of paper, we're done. I'm out of there and whatever, in and out. Some days, maybe some days it's 5 minutes. But every year I have to fill out a bunch of papers and submit my bank document and this and that. to show I'm still a viable participant in the economy and blah blah blah. And the particular thing about the 6 month is it's fairly specific, but once you understand it, it can become, you know, very easy to understand. And that is that, you know, the Social Security system, suspension of benefits system, kind of operates like a clock. So when you leave America or American soil, that clock automatically starts, and it'll tick to the minute 6 months or 180 days. And if you're not back, it will suspend the benefit. It doesn't cancel your benefits, it just suspends the benefit until you do return. So the idea is that you would just be gone for 5 months and 29 days or whatever, and as long as you come in before that 6 month clock ticks, boom, the clock starts again. So that means that you technically, you could just fly over there for lunch. Or no, that's right, you do have to spend 24 hours on American soil, so that's the president's test. So you fly over there and you spend 24 hours to the clock, and you can look at the timestamp on your passport, and then you can come back. But you know, why do that, right? Why fly 6 hours just for one night? Just spend the weekend there before the 6 months is over, and you're great. And then if you do mess that up, if you do go beyond the 6 months, maybe you were sick, maybe you just couldn't go, and you miss the 6 month, and all of a sudden you realize, shoot, my benefit was suspended. Well, you're going to have to go back and establish presence again, meaning you're going to have to spend at least 30 days. So you'll have to fly back to American soil and spend 1 month there, whether it's in a hotel, whatever, and you can show those receipts and stuff too to prove that you were there for 1 month. Although, you know, your passport stamp is also a good indicator there, but again, that's a clock too. So you need to make sure that 30 whole days passed while you were living there in 24-hour blocks, so you can get that 30 days calendared and be able to you fill out a simple form with Social Security to reinstate your benefit or whatever, and then they'll lift suspension and you'll continue to get your benefits. But you know, if you just book yourself calendar every, you know, maybe do it every 5 months and 3 weeks, and you just lock it in so you don't mess it up, and you go spend a weekend there. You know, use part of the Social Security benefit money to make the trip. And I can tell you also, let me talk briefly about visa. A lot of Americans a lot of expat Americans, retirees, they will try to get their spouse a visa to go to America. And when you're in a foreign country, and especially here like in Thailand, this nowadays becomes a difficult thing to do. I've heard from guys that have been married for a couple of years or a few years with their spouse here, and said, man, I've tried 3 times and they're denied every time, which is kind of like crazy. You know, I don't understand why, or they don't understand why. But you know, I have a feeling if I looked at their application, I could probably punch holes in the whys. You know, one of the biggest things for getting a visa is that we plan on returning here, and you have to show why you're returning here. Well, we have a house here, we have a life here, we have a business here, my wife has children here, or whatever. I mean, a lot of these things that tie the return benefit you in terms of getting a visa approved. But a lot of people wind up saying, well, my new wife, you know, I want to show her America, we're going to Disneyland, I'm going to show her the mountains and the ocean. No. You know how many times the consulate has got an application and saw the word Disneyland in there? Jeez. So that's probably not going to happen. However, if you have, you know, the whole picture where you've been living here, you have a house together, or you live together for a long time, you're married and everything's great, and you're, you know, you want to go to Guam, or you want to go to the Mariana Islands because of the history and the war in the Pacific, because you are in the Pacific Rim yourself here in Thailand. You want to see on the island of Tinian where the Enola Gay and the atom bombs were launched during the war. You want to see all the war. You want to investigate the life and the culture and the history, because you do cultural stuff here. When they see that application, which is different than all of the other Let Me Go to America applications. Remember, these consulate guys that do the approving and stuff are oftentimes just a kid with a bachelor's degree who applied to do the job. They're not government majors and things like that. You know, the consulate that gave me our visa years ago, he was like a biology major or something, just doing his 2 years in the consulate. But anyway, so when the application comes across the desk and it's got, I want to go here, I want to go there, actually I would pick Saipan or Tinian, you know, the Northern Mariana Islands or American Samoa before I would pick Guam, because in the past Guam has had challenges with respect to people trying to, you know, get from Guam to mainland U.S. But in the end of the day, that visa, it'll still just be a normal U.S. visa. They'll probably give you a 6-month visa to travel as a tourist. And you do it again and again, they're going to wind up giving you a 10-year tourist visa. This is a fairly common visa that we see. I received one a long time ago for my wife. And that allowed them to travel back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Well, with a 10-year tourist visa, your spouse could easily, even by herself, could fly to Guam or Saipan and spend the weekend and come back. The spousal benefit, suspension part and all that, that doesn't mean both of you have to go either. You don't have to show presence together. You do have to show the presence together for the first 5 years. That needs to show that, yeah, we're in a relationship, we're married. Actually, speaking of which, you only have to be married for 1 year out of that 5 years. So if you're, you know, living together and you have all that established and you're married, maybe only a year, you're still eligible for that benefit. But following that, to maintain your benefit, it's just a physical presence test basically, and that is before 6 months expires, so you don't get a suspension of benefits. But again, if you do get suspension, go 30 days, which might cost you more money because you need a place to stay. Unless you have established friends there from the 5 years you lived there, and you can go live with them for 30 days or whatever. Yeah, so that's pretty easy stuff. Your spouse can benefit from your benefits. It doesn't cost you a dime. Again, this is not your money. This is not money that is going to be taken out of your benefits or the life of your benefit. It's totally different money that's set aside for spouses, because, you know, that age-old adage that being a spouse is also a job, right? So the spouse gets the benefit of that when they're married. So basically, yes, your foreign non-U.S. citizen spouse can receive the spousal benefit having never stepped foot on mainland U.S. America. As long as they can step foot on U.S. soil for the 5-year presence test, it doesn't have to be continuous. It can be cumulative. And they return to U.S. soil within every 6 months to maintain receiving that benefit, unless it'll be suspended. Then you'll have to be present in America for 30 days. And a younger spouse gets to have the age requirement of 62 or 67 waived if that younger spouse actually has children in the home and is taking care of those children that are under the age of 16 or under the age of 22 if they're disabled. And if you wanted to adopt those children of your new spouse, you would do that on American soil, and then those children would be able to get a family benefit amount until they finish high school, or until the age of 19 if they're still in school, or for in the case of someone who was handicapped, throughout 22. And just about everything I said with respect to the regulations or the way Social Security system works, that information is available on the socialsecurity.gov website. So just go to ssa.gov, Social Security Administration, and click for Spousal Support, and you can find out all the detailed information that kind of confirms everything I said, with exception of maybe the islands and stuff, because, you know, that's just common knowledge for people who live on the islands, know that they contribute to Social Security. And now, one little caveat there is, here in Thailand, there's a misconception that Thailand is one of those countries that have Social Security agreements with the United States, and we don't. If we did have a Social Security agreement with the United States, then the 5-year requirement would be waived. That would have been awesome. But we do have the agreement that, you know, they can send Social Security checks here in the banking system and stuff like that. But the actual Social Security agreement is, I believe it's called a Totalization Agreement, which involves other levels of Social Security and within the dual system of being able to get the benefit in Thailand with the Thailand Social Security system and stuff. So we're not actually on the list here in Thailand of countries, and there are about 15 or more countries that are on the list that have agreements with Social Security US that allows them to waive the 5-year, or just be the 5-year requirement is not required if you live in these countries. Like, you know, I think England, most of the European countries, none of the countries that end with the word "stan" or whatever, but there's a whole list of countries on the Social Security admin website that are there to show you who doesn't need the 5-year requirement. But here in Thailand, because we don't have that agreement, who knows, maybe in the future they will develop that agreement, but we don't have that agreement, and so the 5 years is not waived. Yeah. All right, well, hey, that's a lot of information, scattered at most, but I think you get the picture that there is a way for you to help out your spouse if that's something that you really want to do. If you're independently wealthy, you don't have to worry about any of this stuff, then don't worry about it. Forget about it. But if you want to get that done, think about how you can commit to 5 years living in a tropical island paradise, cracking coconuts and having beach barbecues and fishing just like you do here on these islands, or any islands that you have, or coasts where you live currently as a retired citizen or retired U.S. citizen. All right then, well, hey, thanks for watching. Keep watching. And again, if you've never seen my channel, click on the links, check out the channel. All right, thanks for watching.